Jake Matthews, thanks for joining me, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure.
Mate, it's you know what? I remember when you followed me on Insta and I thought, holy shit, it's Jake Matthews, man. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And yeah, man, it's just an honor to have you on my show and having a chat to you, and mate, it'd be good.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been a fan of yours and followed your stuff on Instagram as well, and it's kept me entertained during the lockdowns and whatnot. So yeah, no, I'm excited to be on.
Thanks, man. Now, what's going on? So you're supposed to have a fight a few months ago, December.
I was supposed to have 3 fights in the last 12 months, and only one of them eventuated. So not ideal. I fought last March against Sean Brady, and then I had a contract signed to fight Alex Oliveira, who's a pretty well-known guy, veteran of the sport. So that would have been an awesome fight, and that was in October. And the lack of flights ended up making the fight get cancelled, which is not what I wanted. And then the fight got rescheduled for December, which was the latest I could fight because we had a baby on the way, which the baby just arrived last week. So
congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you. But you never know. Like they stopped the lockdowns. They stopped the lockdowns and the quarantines. But you never know. At the drop of a hat, they could just kick them off again. So I didn't want to be traveling too close to when the baby was due. So we went in December, and everything went well. We made the weight cut, weighed in. I told my coach, I said, I want to sleep in till 10 a.m. on the day of the fight. I said, don't wake me up before then. So anyway, he knocks on my door at 9 a.m. and I have a go at him. I said, I told you not to wake me up so early. He goes, no, I got to talk to you. He said, you're not my opponent. My opponent's corner got COVID, and so the fight's off.
Oh shit.
And I was just, yeah, I mean, we're trying to build a big house at the moment on 5 acres. We had a baby coming. My last fight got cancelled, so I'm sort of panicking a little bit. But I had a training partner there, teammate Jimmy Crute, and he was fighting. His fight was still a go ahead, so I just completely threw all my stuff to the side. I'm of the opinion there's no point worrying about things you have no control over. That's the biggest cause of stress in your life. So for that moment, I couldn't control what was happening. I had no answers, so I just put all my effort into getting my teammate ready.
Yep.
And it wasn't the best fight week for either of us, but I still end up working something out at the UFC, so it was good. And now we've rebooked, so we've got something coming up in May, hopefully.
Mate, who's your opponent in May?
I haven't got anyone confirmed yet. I put a few names to them, so some guys within the top 15. So I think I'm well and truly there. I've changed a few things in my training schedule, so I feel good. I feel like it's my time to make that push. It's everyone has that time where they're going to push as high as they can get. I think that's my time now. So I'm just going to take it and run with it.
Yeah, man. I mean, you started off as lightweight, is that right? Then went to welterweight. You've moved a few times up and down, yeah?
Yeah. So when I was so George St. Pierre and BJ Penn were my all-time favorite fighters, and for that reason, I wanted to fight at welterweight, specifically because of George St. Pierre. So even when I started fighting at 16, amateur. Turned pro when I was 18. So I'd go to weigh-ins and I'd weigh in fully clothed, phone in my pocket, just trying to get as close to welterweight as I could, and I was still under. So I could have fought lightweight easily, but I wanted to be a welterweight for whatever reason. And I had a good run. I had seven wins in a row. Got the call up for the Ultimate Fighter. Didn't win the Ultimate Fighter, but then I ended up getting a call up for UFC in Auckland. And I was training in Albuquerque for quite a while with Kyle Noak. I was staying with Kyle Noak, training with guys like Diego Sanchez, Cowboy Cerrone, John Jones, and you can see how big the guys are.
Yeah.
Some of their lightweights were bigger than I was, and I was fighting a welterweight. So in that decision, I was still 19 at the time.
Yep.
So I decided to make the cut back down to lightweight. So I went welterweight, then down to lightweight. And then, being 19, obviously I'm still going to grow over the years. So with each fight, the weight cuts got progressively harder until the point where I had partial renal failure, my last weight cut. So I started having a little bit of kidney failure. And also had a couple of seizures cutting weight too.
Oh,
So
shit.
that becomes a health issue. So,
Yeah.
you know, and then I met my partner, you know, got pregnant. So I thought, you know, I want to be around for my kids. I was still contemplating making lightweight. And it's one of those things, you know, if I die, I die, pretty much.
Yeah.
So then, you know, Mrs. gets pregnant and you start thinking about, you know, having kids and want to be around for them. So it's sort of a no-brainer. So I said, man, I'll go up to welterweight. If I get my ass kicked, at least I'll get my ass kicked being healthy. And it actually worked out better. The smaller weight cut, I kept my strength. I kept my, you know, my fitness. I didn't feel too heavy or laboured. And, you know, I'm probably one of the smaller welterweights, but I haven't had a fight where I've really felt overpowered and you know, like my opponent has too much strength. So I think it was a good move going up.
Yeah, man. I think I messaged you about it. I sent a photo of you a few weeks ago. When you look jacked. That's why I was surprised when you told me what weight you're at, because you look so much bigger. So you're a big guy, and look, for welterweight, that's the thing as well. People don't realize is that when you see these guys the day before at the weigh-ins, compared to when they're fighting, there's a big difference, right, in the weight. So just say you weigh in at welterweight, well, maybe not so much yourself, because that's probably not too far away from your natural weight. But let's just say when you're at lightweight, one of your last lightweight fights, so you weigh in at 155. What's that in kilos? That's like 70.
That's 70 on the dot.
70. Okay, so
yeah.
Fast forward 24 hours when you're fighting and you walk in the cage. What are you walking in there at?
I'd put on anywhere from 9 to, I think one time I put on 11 kilos.
Fuck, in 24 hours.
I'd get up to 79, 80, 81. And in fact, I actually walked around. So now I walk around about 83 and a half, 84 kilos.
Yep.
So I don't cut much. I cut about 7 kilos, 6.5, 7 kilos max. When I was a lightweight, I cut to 70. I walked up to 93. So 87, 88, up to 93. That's, yeah. So I walk around lighter, even though I'm fighting heavier. And I took a leaf out of Rob Whittaker's book. He was the same. He was walking around heavier, about 110, fighting welterweight. And now he's gone up to middleweight.
Yep. And
he's walking around closer to weight. You know, he's not necessarily the biggest middleweight, but he was always fresh and explosive and kept his strength in the fights. So that's what's important. You know, I would double the size of the lightweights, but every single fight, I'd go back to my corner and I'd just say, fucking hell, that guy is strong. And they did. They felt like they felt absolute monsters. I couldn't move them. And then at welterweight, it's the opposite. I feel like I have the strength advantage. So it's weird. It's a weird paradigm, but it's definitely been beneficial.
It's weird, but it's also not, I guess, to be unexpected. I mean, you're cutting that amount of weight. It has to impact your strength, your cardio, I guess, as well would suffer. Do you find fighting at welterweight, your cardio is better?
Everything's better. Okay. Everything, including, you know, you see, lightweight, there was sometimes it didn't even look like I got hit and I seemed to stumble. And actually, because I had partial renal failure, I went and had a checkup and I was down. I was down by like 30% cerebral fluid. I think I was at 60% one time cerebral fluid. So you can get knocked out easier. Obviously, your thought process isn't going to be as good. I had a good portion of the air pockets in my lungs closed up from severe dehydration, so I didn't have full capacity of my lungs either. So it's just a complete mess cutting that much weight. You know, I think some guys can do it. I think even Khamzat Chimaev, he walks around bigger than me, and I'm pretty sure he had a lightweight fight in the UFC, one of his first 3 fights. And and he's a big boy. I think it just depends on your body.
Well, his most recent fight was at middleweight, wasn't it? Most recent?
It might have been,
he did. Pretty sure he fought.
Someone said last night. He'll be like a 3-division champion, first one, they reckon. And I probably don't doubt it. He's a beast. He's him and Islam Makhachev. Those two guys are different.
Man, I watched his performance yesterday. Unbelievable. It's like watching Khabib again.
Yeah, I didn't even watch it. I don't normally watch UFCs.
You don't watch them at all?
Weird? Nah. What was I doing on Sunday? I was at a baby expo.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, but no, it's probably a little bit different. But my comparison, I'll say, you know, my mate's a Sparky, for example. I'll say, do you go home and watch videos of people putting in PowerPoints in the wall? You know what I mean?
That's
Like
true.
you
Fair
need a
point.
mental break. You need a mental break sometimes from if everything. You know, all my mates are fighters. I fight for a living. Everything is just complete bombardment of UFC and fighting. So my one day off, I want to do something else instead of going to the pub, getting bailed up by fans and talking about UFC all day. So, you know, we jump on the motorbikes, we go out camping, anything else apart from fighting. So that's my goal, at least one day a week on Sunday or whatever my day off is. That's what I'll try and do.
Makes sense.
With the exception of big super fights that excite me, I'll go and watch them, of course. But the normal UFC fight nights or, you know, just the pay-per-views here and there, I don't usually get involved. I always stay up to date with the results and any current news within the MMA world because it obviously concerns me.
Yep.
So, but in terms of watching the events themselves, yeah, I don't really watch them much.
Makes sense. I mean, I guess people forget that is your job, and you spend, you know, most of your time in that environment, as you said, with your mates who are fighters and talking about fighting, and then you run into fans, I'm sure, and they talk about fighting. Then you come on this podcast and I talk to you about fighting. So you get it. But it's look. So what about your opponent? So if you know you got a fight coming up, do you just go into like an app, the UFC app, and just watch their last few fights, or how do you do that?
There's something I've always done. I mean, I've recently started trying to like regress back to when I was younger. Because if you watch my fights when I was a kid, I was a complete animal. Did not care who I went in there against. I went in there. I had 2 professional fights, and I went in there against Australian champions who have all these accolades. And every single fight, I was an underdog. My first fight, my first debut, I fought a guy who was 7 wins, 5 knockouts, a big Islander guy, and I just went in there and fought him. And I won every fight that I went in. So. And I never did any video research. I didn't focus too much on what my opponent was doing. I knew what I was good at, you know. And in my mind, it's fighting's simple. At its purest form, it's simple. If they're beating you on the feet, take them down. If they're good on the ground, keep it stand up. That was my mindset back in the day, and it worked for me. If there was ever a time where I was in trouble, I'd switch it up and I'd go to a different aspect of the sport. I'd wrestle them, or I'd take them down, or I'd defend takedowns and stand back up. You know, whereas recently there's been a lot of emphasis on what my opponent's good at and focusing too much on, you know, if this foot is fucking 10 degrees to the left, they're going to throw this strike. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's fighting. As soon as you get punched in the face, everything changes. And that goes the same for your opponent. I've, you know, the biggest eye opener for me was against Kevin Lee. He was striking with everyone. He had a few knockouts. He was a stand-up guy in my eyes.
Yep.
And we went out and fought, and he just started bombing my legs, just double leg after double leg. And I just, in my mind, I was like, man, he's not allowed to do this. Like, this is not, you know what I mean? This is not what I trained for. And yeah, and then he just said, he thought my stand-up was really good. He didn't want to stand up with me. So he just started taking me down. So that opened my eyes. You know, you can't be set on the game plan because it's always going to change. And that's what I did when I was younger. So we're starting to get back to that now.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That could work for you. I mean, if it served you well in your career earlier on, then who knows? It must be hard though, because at the level you're at, you sort of know everyone. So like, you know the guy you're going to be fighting. So, and you know what they're good at. So even if you try to switch that off, it's still going to have to play a part, I would have to imagine, to some extent.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'll watch the fights. If I get an opponent, I'll watch the fights a little bit under sufferance because my coach makes me, but I'll watch them once. I'll watch each of their fights once, and I'll say, oh, I know what he's good at, you know. And if there are little details I can pick out, I'll pick them out. And from then, it's my coaches will watch the footage, you know, multiple times, and they'll just discreetly bring the game plan into training. They won't say, all right, your opponent does this, so we're going to do this. We'll just train it. Yeah. And again, that just takes away that constant bombardment of like, you got a fight coming up. Another thing when I was younger, which it's pretty hard to do when you're fighting in a professional organization like the UFC, but all my fights back when I was younger, they were probably like a week, 2 weeks, maybe maximum 4 weeks notice. So you didn't have time to get into your own head. You know, you train all year round, you stay fit to fight. They'll hit you up and they'll be like, hey, you want to fight in a couple of weeks? My first fight was like 4 days notice and didn't have time to think about it. and that's the way I fought best. So, my worst fights are probably when I have these 12, 13-week training camps. So that's something else we've done is I'll stay fit, but the training camp itself, where we really, really push hard, is 4 to 6 weeks maximum, and that's when I've had my best fights. So it's a balancing act, and I did get in the UFC when I was 19, so I had to learn on the job.
Yep.
A lot of people say, "Oh, you've had 15 fights, you should be champ by now," and I said, "Not really." I said these other guys, Israel and Alex Volkanovski, I said they were established before they got in the UFC. I said I got in there when I was a kid. So I got to learn and progress while fighting in the hardest organization in the world. And I feel like I'm at the point now where I know what I need to do. So as I said before, just time to make that push to as high as I can get.
Man, I thought that when I watched you fight Diego Sanchez, that's what I was thinking watching that fight. I thought, you know what, you hit another level in terms of, I think, just the maturity level, to be honest. It was a bit different to the other fights I watched you in previously. And that must have been, look, I don't know how it would feel for you. I mean, Diego Sanchez he's an OG of the sport, right? He's on the first Ultimate Fighter. What's it like for you when you have to go into a fight against a guy like that who you probably respect and you've watched growing up, like I did? What's it like for you fighting the sort of the veterans? Is it the same for you, like just business as usual, or is there a little bit of more respect for those guys than your other? How does that feel for you?
It is different. The difference was I've never gotten nervous for anything in my life. I don't know what it is. I've never suffered nerves. I get anxious, again, because a long training camp, then you got fight week, and you're sitting around waiting, and then you get to the event 3 hours before the fight, and there's a lot of waiting, which gets you get anxious. You just want to get in there and get it done. But with the Diego one, there was the nervousness because that's a guy that you want to get. I want him on my list. I want his name on my list of guys that I've beaten. Yeah. So I put that pressure on myself. I did show a bit of maturity, but also probably a little bit too safe in that fight. Yeah. There were a few times where I could have finished the fight. But at the end of the day, I got the win. You know what I mean? And people from the outside, people can't tell, but when you're in there with a guy like Diego, he had his black belt when I was like 10 years old in jiu-jitsu. Yeah. When we hit the floor, I could feel that. So a few people are saying you should just kept punching him. I said, man, you don't understand. Like, I could feel this guy, just the movement of his hips. Yep. I was like, this guy's good on the ground. So yeah, that's that nervousness sort of held me back a bit. But at the end of the day, you get in there to get the win, and however you have to get the win is what you got to do, and that's what I did for that fight. So,
man, because I remember watching. I remember one of my favorite fighters is Anderson Silva. Man, I love watching that guy compete. The guy's a ninja. And I remember watching his last fight now, where he was Uriah Hall. Yeah. And I remember that fight, like it was a beatdown, right? And I remember watching it thinking, man, I wonder how it must feel for Uriah, because obviously there's so much respect for someone like Anderson in the sport. Like, it'll have to, I imagine, like, I guess not feeling bad because you're doing your job ultimately, and they're trying to hurt you as well. But like, it must be something like when you fight one of these veterans, the older blokes, does a part of you feel like, fuck, I really don't want to be punching this guy in the face?
100%, yeah. I think I said in the interview, I said I wanted to apologize to him like mid beatdown, because I think it's something I'd probably agree too. You just have this feeling in the fight. You just see, when I had the ground and pound at the end, you just see in their face like he's going to retire after this fight. This is his last fight. I think you just see a light go out or something go out. And I definitely saw that with Diego. I was like, I don't think he's going to be fighting after this. And he didn't. I think he wanted to, but at the end of the day, it didn't end up eventuating. So I think Uriah felt the same thing. Obviously, they've gone on to fight. Anderson's doing some boxing, and I think
he's not bad.
Yeah. He beat a really well-known guy, legend of boxing. So, and then Diego wants to go to bare knuckle against Kevin Lee, which I think is going to be an absolute slaughter. But again, who knows if that's going to actually eventuate or not? But you definitely felt bad for him.
Yeah, man. And it gets to a point where you don't want to see.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's not. They're not the same person that they were when they were
younger. Yeah, of course. And it gets to the point where you don't really want to watch them compete, not because you don't enjoy it, but because you don't want them, like Diego Sanchez fighting bare knuckle should be like, he shouldn't be doing that. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The guy shouldn't be getting punched in the head anymore. Like he's been punched in the best part of 20 years, and he's been in some wars. Some wars. I remember him when he fought BJ Penn. Man, he's been in some wars, that guy. And you're like, man, like, I don't know what it is. Is it money? Is it just, I don't think it's money for some guys. I think it's just, that's all they know.
I think it's one thing to get to a point physically where you can't compete at that level anymore. Then it's another step to just stop fighting altogether. Because that's his identity. That's who he is. I don't think he's, that's what everyone knows him for. I know guys who have fought, at the level of 1FC, some Australian guys, and retired from fighting and just completely lost who they were. Had ended up going through divorces and suffering depression and whatnot, and you just lose who you are, I guess. So I think it's that's why a lot of these guys, they just keep fighting till they're older because they don't have anything else. Whereas myself, I've seen that. I was in Albuquerque when I was 18 years old, partying with John Jones and all those guys in Jamaica and training with all these elite level UFC fighters. But what I saw was the behind the scenes. I used to watch all the prime times and the countdowns, and I was like, man, that's the lifestyle. That's what I want. And that's what I was after. I didn't necessarily, I liked fighting, but I wanted the lifestyle that I saw on those videos. And I got to the US and I was like, man, these guys are living 3, 4, 5 up in one house renting because they actually have no money. And then, maybe 0.1% of all fighters across the entire world get to the UFC, if that. And then of the guys in the UFC, maybe 0.5% actually make enough money where it was worth their time. And what I saw is the majority of the guys, they have a little stint in the UFC. They're in their early mid-30s. They have no money saved up. They've got no other prior education. They've sacrificed having a relationship. So they've got no kids. They've got no missus. They're living 3, 4 up in a house renting. And now they're just going to be taking PTs at a gym for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So
it's a sad sight.
Sad to see, yeah. And I just made that decision then. I said, man, if I'm going to do this, because I was going to defer from uni, I was going to put everything I had into fighting. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I've got to give it 100%, or I'm not going to do it at all. So there's a bit of self-reflection there. And I decided to do it, and it was worthwhile. I deferred from uni for 6 months, and that was like 8 years ago. So I gave up my footy career. I was pretty aspiring footy career. There's a lot of people that were upset that I stopped playing footy.
AFL?
But it worked out in the end. Yeah, Aussie rules footy. Yeah,
Aussie rules. Yeah, it's we still have it up here, obviously in New South Wales, but NRL is the big one up here.
I'm a league fan now, anyway. So.
Oh, you're a league fan? Fuck, that's rare.
Yeah.
A lot of people one or the other.
I had a bad taste left in my mouth after playing footy for 9 years.
Yeah.
It was just, I was training as a 12, 13-year-old, training 4 times a week, playing multiple games on a weekend, playing representative and local as well.
Yeah.
And then to be told, being one of the best on the team, but then to be told that you're too short to play in the representative team. So that sort of did it for me. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go fight then.
You're not overly short. How tall are you? You're not overly short.
Yeah, all the kids that they picked over me, I'm taller than them all now.
There you go.
All these kids that sprouted early, they're at like 5'10", 5'11" when they were 14. They stopped growing. So now I'm taller than those guys. But I think it happened for the best. I found what I really love doing. You have your moments during the sport, but it's never become a time where it's been stale for me. And I thought maybe I don't want to do it anymore. I still have just as much love for it as I did when I was younger, if not more now. So yeah, definitely picked the right path.
Man, it's a tough sport. Like it's hard. Like, for example, take a game of Aussie rules or rugby league, whatever it is. And when you got two sides going up against each other, one side's a betting favorite. And look, there's really, that the other team is probably not going to win. Like, because it's not, they have to get everything right for 80 minutes, which probably isn't going to happen. Right. When you talk about fighting, you're talking about, man, you could be ranked, you can be unranked and face a top 5 guy and get off a lucky shot.
Yeah.
Like it happens. I've won some money. I've won some money on those fights. And it's like, man, Diaz and Conor, the first fight, I remember I put some money on that. I was the only person that I know of in my circle of mates that picked Diaz to win that fight. And I just knew stylistically he was going to give him some problems. And that's what I mean. Things can change, man. And we've all seen it. The biggest moments we've seen Rousey and Holm, like those really big moments where it's just a massive upset. And that happens in the sport a lot. And that's because it's such a game. I think Joe Rogan says it best when he says it's like a chess match with dire consequences. And that's exactly what it is.
There's always a puncher's chance. And more so with MMA than any other combat sport. With boxing, with boxing, again, just like a game of footy, who's going to win. The better boxer is going to win the fight. Unless, there is the exception of the odd, lucky shot. But, with boxing or with wrestling, there's normally a favorite who is going to win. With MMA, you can be a much better striker, but, they take you down in the last 30 seconds and get a choke. It's just, there's so many aspects to the sport. It's just, like you said, you could get a bum in off the street and you cannot be 100% of who's going to win. And that's what makes it exciting too. And that's, you have that anxiety. I don't know about any other fighters, but I know me, like, there could be 20 seconds in the third round. I've completely annihilated this guy for 3 rounds. And for those last 20 seconds, I got this anxiety about me where I could still potentially lose.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas, in boxing matches, you don't have that. You just keep doing what you've been doing the whole fight.
Yeah, and you know what? It's standing up on the feet's one thing, but you know what? I remember when I was, I think 19 or 20, and mate, I always had an ego on me. Like I think we all do at that age, right? We have a bit of an ego, and man, I was in this gym scene, man. I was using gear back then. I was on some tests and some other things, and I remember walking into Gracie's jiu-jitsu at Smeaton Grange here where Whitaker trains. Whitaker's about 10 minutes from me, just down the road. And I remember Whitaker's coach, Alex. You know Alex?
I do, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember grappling with him. And at the time I was on the ciggies as well. So I rocked up to training reeking of cigarette, right? With an ego. And for some reason, he always liked me from the first time I met him. He always gave me a lot of time. And I remember one day we're rolling and he was up. I was next up with him. And man, at the time I said 19, 20, young. I was jacked. And I thought, and he said something about, he's like, "Oh, you're smoking?" I said, no, I was scared to say yes, right? So he's a serious dude. So I'm like, no, man, no, I'm not. And we started rolling, and I'll never forget what it's like having that dude on top of you. Like it was something I've never experienced before. I thought it was impossible. Like, how is this guy who is half my size, but I couldn't move. I was helpless. He could have killed me, no problem, if he wanted to at that point. And you know what? I left that session like with an ego adjustment. It really did. It changed the way I was. Even to this day, that's still such a moment in my life where I can guarantee you I've lived my life differently because of that moment. Honestly, it's like, well, you know what it's like. You walk around, you think you're the shit. You'll probably be different because you actually know how to fight, right? So, but the standard 19, 20-year-old just knows how to throw a few big hits and then that's it. But you still walk around with that ego, and man, that took it out of me completely. And I'll never forget that moment. And man, there's a big difference. And I said, there's no other sport like it, where if you get on the ground with somebody who's at a high level in jiu-jitsu, you got no chance, like zero, no chance.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's something.
Then you add in something like striking or strikes on the ground, and it changes the dynamic again. But
for sure.
No, you're right about humbling, because I ran a gym. I still own the gym. We closed it down before COVID. I'll open it again, one day soon. But we had a gym, and man, egos don't last. Either the ego goes or the person's going to go. And if they're stubborn, then we'll beat them out. We'll beat it out of them. And I've had people like tapping in a triangle, and I just, we had people come in and, and talk it up, and you can see that they're cocky and they go with the young kids or the women, and they're really rough and they hurt them. Yeah. We sorted those guys out real quick, and they either drop their ego and they become good, or they leave the gym for good.
Yeah, and look, it must. If you walk into a gym with an ego, man, I know dudes that would be 60 kilos soaking wet, like honestly, like it looked like a skeleton, right? Tiny, tiny, tiny dudes, and they would fuck me up easily, no problem. It's like if you go, I don't care how big you are, how jacked you are. If you go in and you fight or you spar with someone that is experienced, as you said, your ego will leave or you will leave, because it makes you realize that, hold on, I'm not shit. Like I'm nothing. I'm a nobody. And it's, mate, all young men should sign up, to be very honest.
They should implement something in schools.
100%.
I reckon you have a lot less bullies. You know, if you're walking around the street knowing if these big lads and stuff that walk around the street thinking they're tough, if they only knew what someone who's done 2 months of training could do to them, they wouldn't be walking around like that.
No, definitely not.
Whether it's not even just jiu-jitsu, whether it's just boxing or kickboxing, whatever it is, those are the people that have never experienced what you said, what you did. They've never been into a gym. They've never been beaten down by someone who's unassuming. You could start something with that little skinny dad who's wearing glasses, walking around with his 3 kids, and that guy could just break every one of your limbs within 2 minutes, and you just don't know. So if you know that, like I know that, I walk around and I notice little things like the cauliflower ears.
Yeah.
A lot of people still today, they just think I play rugby. If only people knew. If people saw that, that means don't mess with me.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. That's what that
I've
means.
got a few mates who used to sit on the couch and just rub their ears to try and get cauliflower. They never actually train. But yeah, if people only knew what could happen to them in the street, they'd humble down real quick, and it'd probably be better for everyone.
For sure. I was working when I was trying to get how old I was now. Before I started working in mental health, I worked in I was a bouncer in clubs. So I used to work in the Cross, Cronulla, and it was a tough job, very tough. You're dealing with fuckwits, drunk, on drugs, and I started doing boxing with at Grange boxing at Smeaton Grange. Anthony Redwood's the head coach there, or was the head coach there. Daniel Gill.
I know that name.
Yeah.
I know that name.
So that's his gym, and I remember I was training there, and I was doing security, and that's really why I wanted to do it mainly. So I started boxing, and then BJJ at Gracie's, and I remember that Anthony was saying to me, "Listen, if you don't want to box professionally, don't box. Like it's not worth the shots to your head, unless you're taking it seriously." And that's when I did it for a few months, and I stopped. I'm not going to compete. It's just more self-defense, but it wasn't the ideal thing, right? If you're work at a club, boxing probably isn't the best thing to learn. So that's when I started Krav Maga. So you familiar with Krav Maga?
I've never taken part in any of it, but I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that for a few years. I loved it. It was practical for what I was doing, and it's something that I'll have with me forever now. So, and it's really ideal. I think all law enforcement, security should all be doing that. It's the Israeli Defense Force, hand-to-hand combat regime. Yeah. So that was good for me for what I needed it for. But yeah, man, I think a lot of people would benefit from school. I mean, there's room for it in schools. Like they can do it.
Yeah. People always will degrade certain martial arts. Obviously, there's some that are just going to get people hurt. But parents ask me, they say, karate's this and that, and it's shit, and what should I get my kids into? And I said, like, even my kids being a UFC fighter, the first martial arts that my little ones will take part in will probably be karate, to be honest. First of all, it's better to know something than nothing.
Yeah.
All martial arts has its place. I mean, we've seen that with guys like Lyoto Machida, Ben Henderson, Anthony Pettis. They're karate guys, and they did well with it. But no, just get out and just do something. Doesn't matter what it is. Don't pick and choose and think karate's crap or Krav Maga's this or jiu-jitsu is only good for one-on-one. Just get out. Get out and learn something. That's what I tell everyone, and especially for kids, especially for law enforcement. So we'll eventually get something going here. But even we do a little bit with the fire brigade with the FRB down here in Melbourne. Mm-hmm. So those guys, you'll be surprised. Those guys probably get into more scuffles and have to throw people down more than police do.
Really?
Yeah. I got mates that tell me stories, and there's a lot of incidences. You know, there's a lot of things like grow houses and drug users. You know, they burn their house down. They're trying to run back into a burning house, and they got to restrain them. And then you hear it a lot, and even with paramedics too. So we're trying to instill that. In America, they've done a good job of it. It's this culture around, you know, I mean, if you're an office worker, you're going and doing jiu-jitsu, like you're probably just a weekend warrior doing it for fun. But, you know, I've got mates and family members in law enforcement and, you know, they paramedics and firefighters. And I said, you guys, not only just the physical capability of, you know, just getting your strength up, you know, because a lot of it is physical work. But I said, being able to defend yourself. I said, there are instances where firefighters have to defend themselves, and paramedics, you know, we hear about paramedics getting abused all the time. And that should be your motivation to train. I said, you're training because it's fun, but you're also training because your occupation too. And at the end of the day, it could very well save your life in one of those instances. So sometimes I go in, you know, because sometimes I go into training with the mentality, like I'm just going to go and do, especially outside of a fight camp, I'll go and train jiu-jitsu with the mindset of self-defense. So I'll have, you know, especially the Gracie lineage is very self-defense orientated. So I'll try and use their techniques, and I'll pretend, you know, just in my mind, if someone's on top, I'll pretend they've got like a weapon in their hand. So I'll try and isolate that hand, and then I'll try and do, and it's just sort of, it keeps you, it makes training interesting, you know, stops training from being stale. And then you're also training for a reason. Like, what better reason to train than for your health and safety and for your work? So we're trying to get something down here in Melbourne where it's like a first responder, you know, all free first responders. Maybe we'll do it out of one gym or do it out of multiple gyms that want to get in on it. But first responders can come and train for free. And I think it'll be a good program. And like I said, the US have done a really good job. It's a whole culture around just being prepared. It's preparedness is what it is.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get something like that in Australia, and hopefully it kicks off.
Yeah, well, it needs to. It'd be, man, I used to work in the mental health units in the hospitals, and I know exactly what it's like for nurses and all of those involved, man. It's tough. They cop it a lot, especially with drug patients that are coming off drugs or even alcohol. It's man, they cop it, and it's something that they would benefit from. But back to the kids, you know what? It's not just the self-defense, but it's the discipline. The discipline will really help kids. I feel like looking at the teenagers now compared to when I was a teenager, we weren't the best, but we still had a bit of respect for others.
Yeah.
A lot of kids these days, man, I've got a 12-year-old son, and he's got respect because I make sure he has respect. But a few of his friends, man, like there's just no respect there. Like used to be going around to your mate's place, like you'd be very respectful of the parents, right? Always. The kids these days, man, they're just not. They you know, they think that they're God's gift, and you know, they do what they want, and that's a lack of discipline. And that's what martial arts does. If you get kids into martial arts at the right age, I mean, primary school is a good age to start kids in martial arts, and things like karate is great for discipline. Man, it will change a generation.
Main reason that I'll get my kids. First of all, karate is very easy to comprehend for kids. Jiu-jitsu is very complex. You know, like there are some little prodigies that can pick it up, but 99% of little kids that do jiu-jitsu, they're not taking it on board. You know, they're playing games and doing a bit of coordination. But I think in terms of coordination and discipline and basic self-defense skills, karate is very good. I even myself, I go to a gym and do like Kyokushin karate as part of my training. You know, as often as I can get in to do it, I'll go and do it. So I think it can definitely be effective. But also, speaking of discipline to not fight in the first place.
Yeah.
But for me, I in primary school and the first 2 years of high school, I'd have two detentions a week, probably at least one a week minimum. Normally, just from giving bullies a hiding. If you look at my group of friends, even my friends that are still my friends today, it's just the biggest motley crew of just like anime nerds and just people from different ethnicities, and just you know, I never got expelled from a school, but I'd no shit have like 2 detentions every week, and they couldn't really do much. You know, I'd get detention for fighting, but I was defending someone and beating up a bully. But I had the discipline to not hurt people. And that's for kids, especially for kids. They need to know, would you rather your kid get into a fight and know how to correctly choke someone, or would you rather them just grab their neck and just squeeze and hold it for however long, not understanding? And the same with police. I mean, we've seen it, like, I won't get into it, but we've seen it, in the last couple of years. They can say, you're training, a lot of people spin it in the way, you'll be training police to hurt people, or you'll be training police to be fighters. It's like, well, no. Would you rather, because police are going to do what they do anyway.
Yeah.
If firefighter is going to do what they have to do anyway. If they've got to throw someone to the ground, that's what they're going to do. Would you rather them throw someone to the ground, smash their head against the floor, which we've seen recently in the train station video? So would you rather that happen, or potentially break someone's arm, or would you rather have someone who knows how to restrain someone properly, who knows how to, without breaking any limbs or damaging someone, put them on the floor and restrain them properly? Same with kids. I'd rather my kids, instead of throwing big haymakers, potentially having some kid fall and hit his head on the floor, I'd rather my kids be able to take someone down, restrain them without having to throw a strike, and do it all safely. And that comes down to discipline as well. The discipline to not, pick up a rock and just hit someone over the head with it.
Yeah.
I just think it needs to be implemented at a large scale somehow, whether it's schools or some sort of government grants, just to get, just to get people in once a month with their, parents and kids getting together and they train together, or families or women's classes. There needs to be some sort of grants to get people in, because as you said, people's ethics and morality is just going downhill at a rate that I can't even comprehend. Like these kids, like, their parents seem respectful.
Yeah.
So you think that would be implemented into their kids. And I always thought it was, and I'm happy to admit, my mindset changes over the years as I learn and also grow. And I always thought your kids are a complete reflection of you. But it's not the case.
No, it's not.
I think it's more to do with the culture, what these kids are watching, the culture of all, pop culture, what's in the media. I think you can instill as much, to an extent, the parent instilling discipline will help. But at the end of the day, they're only at home with you. You see them for maybe 2 hours in the morning and a couple of hours at night. They're at school and they're at other places, majority of their life. Yeah. So I definitely think that has a big impact. So, yeah.
You know what it is, man? Definitely. You know what it is? It's hard to control what they do and say. Like, growing up, and how old are you? 27, 28?
I'm 27 now. Yeah, I'm getting old.
Oh, I'm 30 this year. Tell me about it. It's scary, man. No, it happens. It happens very quickly as well.
It does. It does.
You know what? So it was the same with you. Growing up, like, I remember when I was, I think, in year 6, year 5, year 6, what's that, like 11, 12 years old? My friend gave me an Eminem CD. It was a Without Me, the single. And I used to have, remember the old Walkmans? It used to fucking just try and squeeze them in your pocket. So I had one of those. And I remember my dad found it one day, and my dad listens to it. And my dad's like, my dad listens to Elvis and the Beatles. Like, this fucking terrified. He's like, what the fuck's this, right? And I remember he snapped the CD. And that was it for me. I couldn't get it again, right? It wasn't easy back then. You have to go and physically buy it or get someone who could burn it on a CD or whatever it was. And I was only speaking about this on a podcast a few weeks ago. And the same thing with porn. Like, porn was something that when we were teenagers, we all got it, but it wasn't easy. It was like you had to either, get it from a friend's dad or your own dad or whatever. Like, you couldn't just get it on your phone in 2 seconds. Now, kids, it's scary to think that. Like, you don't think that 12-year-old boys are looking up porn? Of course they are. So
there's no way to monitor that. I mean, I've got a daughter who's 3 years old, and so not YouTube. This is kids YouTube. So this is YouTube specifically for kids.
Yep.
And she was watching, I think it was Mickey Mouse. So it starts as a proper Mickey Mouse cartoon.
Yeah. Then
it goes to a grown man playing with Mickey Mouse toys, and he's swearing, like, he's saying, like, fuck you and this and that. This is kids YouTube. And there was another instance where my mate's missus, it starts as Peppa Pig. And then it goes to some adult playing with the toys, and he's making Peppa Pig drown her little brother in a bath.
What the fuck? That's twisted.
Kids YouTube. Yeah. But man, I don't know. Like
and they've uploaded that because I know when
but that's the thing. The amount of monitoring, you can't upload something like that to Facebook. So why are they letting it get through? And that makes, you know, like I'm the same mindset of you. Like there's a big narrative, and they want people to be a certain way, and you know I look at it that way. But it's just impossible to monitor your kids 24/7 when they're watching.
It's scary. Like I know when I upload clips, to YouTube, it says, "Is this clip made specifically for kids?" And if I hit yes, this other box pops up, and because it distributes it on YouTube Kids, which is what you're talking about, which has got its own app and everything like that. And I always click no, obviously, because all these aren't for kids. But so that sick fuck who have made those videos must be deliberately doing that. You'd have to, otherwise it wouldn't populate on the kids app.
Yeah.
And they obviously must be watching what's on there.
No, when they talk about the amount of content on YouTube, it'd take you 23 million years to watch every single, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be impossible for them to catch every single thing that goes on there. And it's scary.
Well, they catch everything. They catch everything I put up. If I put up a post that says, get outside, get some vitamin D, fuck, that flag's on there in about 30 seconds. I say that, no.
Well, you know, they don't want you to be healthy and fit.
No, that's
if
for
we're
sure.
Healthy and fit, they lose money. So you go against the narrative, and that's when they'll get you.
Bro, I'm telling you, man, we live in a world now that's so crazy that it concerns me of what the kids are going to grow up watching and what's not only normalized, but promoted. Like there was, I'm not joking, about a year ago, I was on Twitter because I fuck around on Twitter a bit. Twitter's good fun, right? So I was on there going through some things, and there's a page that I follow. I can't think what it's called. Oh, there's a few of them. There's Clown World and there's Libs of TikTok, which is fucking hilarious. And have you seen them? Those?
No, I haven't. No, I can imagine that.
Man, Anyway, so it was an account like that, and there was this post where they were celebrating like Women's Month empowerment or whatever it was, and the song they used to promote that was WAP. You know WAP?
Yeah.
Right. I'm thinking, what in the fuck is that? Like, I don't want my daughters growing up thinking that's what you should be. Like that to me is twisted. It's sick. And yes, okay, she makes money and it makes money and it's but that's not what the world's about. Like, you have to, what they're trying to normalize and to push in front of everybody is very concerning. But you got a daughter, you know what it's like, but it's terrifying as it is.
It's just trying to break down the family unit. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And it makes it, that's what it's about.
Definitely.
I was at a martial arts gym, and they were playing that WAP song, and there's an adult class, and I was even during the adult class, I was like, what, you know what I mean? It's supposed to be a family environment gym, and I thought that even that was inappropriate to be playing that in an adults class. And and there's mums there, buddy, grabbing their boxing bags, fucking twerking on the boxing bags and shit, and I was just like, man, I couldn't believe it. I'm very, like I said, I consider myself somewhat of a recluse, so I don't get on and listen to these. Someone will mention that I didn't know about that WAP song until like a few weeks ago. Like, I'm very, very oblivious to all that pop culture because I don't follow any of it. So that's why it doesn't affect me. But man, it is concerning. But that's why I've bought 5 acres out in a rural area. I'm getting the kids on a farm with animals, and
that's the best way to do it.
That way. Man, there's a lot of that at the moment. There's a lot of people looking to do that. There's a lot of people that have shipped out regional. I can see what what the governments and what I call them elites. What their goal is for the future. But I think people are catching on, and people. I see the future being a lot simpler than what people think. They think it's going to be flying cars and this and that. First of all, people can't even park their fucking car at Coles. You think they're going to give you flying cars? You're kidding yourself.
Oh,
but I think people get back to like sustainable living. I think that's the future, to be honest. And I think and that's going to be good for kids to be growing up that way. And we got 5 acres, and every single square foot of that block is just going to be used to grow fruit and veg. And we're just going to slap boxes together and just take them to friends and family and anyone who wants it. And then have sheep and animals for the kids to play with. And I think that's a lot of people are going to go that way as well.
Yeah, man. It has to happen, and that's a credit to you for seeing what's going on and making the right decisions now while you can to. I mean, that's the way you have to be. I mean, it's the city life for me, man. You look at the new estates going up in Sydney. They are anyway. Every few months is a brand new suburb. Look, what the fuck's that? It's a new suburb, and it's all the same, man. It's just houses on top of each other, 400 square meters, tiny blocks, big houses. But literally, you could hear your neighbors taking a shit next door, or is that close together? And man, that doesn't interest me in the slightest. And back to what we were talking about before, it's like they're force feeding this content to kids. Like, for example, this show that I do, I just have conversations like we're having now. Nothing extreme, nothing that would hurt or harm anybody. It's all positive and just trying to, I talk to interesting people and hopefully I learn something. So I hope that the listeners learn something. But man, I battle censorship on a daily basis, especially on Spotify's bad for it. They constantly push my show out back in again. They remove it from trending, all sorts of shit. And
I've been demonetized on Instagram. I must get 50 to 100 followers every single day that comes up in my notifications. And the number of my followers has not gone up in the last 4 months. So I don't know what's going on there, but there's my Instagram account's completely being just shut down.
They remove them. They remove your followers. I've had that happen, and many people have
all the stuff I share is now, as people have said, has now become fact in mainstream media. So I'm sitting here waiting for my compensation. All these companies that have been censored and shut down and demonetized, are they going to get compensated for sharing what is now fact?
Yeah.
Like, are you going to get compensated for all the money that you've lost? When you look back at it, all you were sharing was what the mainstream is now saying is fact.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
And that's the crazy thing.
Instagram anyway, but it's
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't make money from Instagram itself, but obviously, that's important for me. Having lost my job last year, which I was working in a management position for a mental health organization. That's just not easy to just get back into that sort of work. So it has been for me, the podcast and my social media accounts has been very important for me. And when they start fucking with that and censoring it and limiting reach and engagement, all these things, it definitely cost me money. And it's like, well, hold on. What I said, I mean, it's not me saying it. That's the crazy part. I don't just get on a show and rant and make up all these stories. I speak to experts in the field who then they share that and I pass that on. That's all I do. It's like, well, yeah. It's like, well, why are you censoring that? And now it's factual. Well, where's my fucking apology from you destroying me for the last 6 months? Like, we now know that's true. But yet that's considered dangerous information, right? In their words, dangerous information. Me telling you to go outside and get some vitamin D, make sure you eat right. And that's dangerous, according to them, as dangerous information. But like the songs that get promoted and pushed to the top of the charts and everywhere talk about like, the way they talk about women and using women and using drugs like Xanax and all this shit as like the number one songs in the world. You're like, how the fuck are you pushing that? But then I'm a problem. So how's that work?
I agree.
It's backwards, completely backwards.
Well, there was a Sesame Street episode, and they had a guest on there. It was Elmo's talk show, and their guest on there was
Elmo's got his talk show. That's funny.
Yeah, and their guest was Little Nas X. I mean, Little Nas X.
Yeah. The Old Town Road guy.
He was a guest on a Sesame Street Elmo's talk show. And we know what his videos and stuff promote. It's just,
they're fucking very unusual. I remember I watched one, it was on when I was walking past it. And
you can say if you like watching them, it's all right. I won't judge.
No, mate, I heard enough of that Old Town Road song to last me a lifetime. But no, bro, it's just it. But that's just not him. But it's a lot of the mainstream musicians, and it's a shame, that we need a huge change. There needs to be a huge culture change, because the people that are getting the fame and the contracts, the TV show, Abby Chatfield, I've spoken about her for months, and I'll always speak about that because it's wrong. And I don't, it's the way that these people are. It's like, I don't want a world where my kids grow up and think that she's someone to be idolized. I don't want that. And that's just my opinion, though. she's doing her thing. Fine, it's fantastic. But ultimately, the good people who I would like my kids to look up to, they're the ones that, like Candace Owens, for example. Mate, she's incredible.
Yeah.
But she cops the same thing. And the minute you start speaking about, like this conversation we've just had in the last 10 minutes would be considered, what do they call it? Far right. So they call it?
Probably. Yeah.
The fuck is it? What does that even mean? Is that not, aren't we talking normal? Or we just want shit to be normal. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But they label it.
I'm talking about I want to move out into a farm and live sustainably so my kids can go out live out in the fresh air. And that's an extremist view now.
Well, a conspiracy theorist. He believes in the flat earth. But that's what they carry on like.
Yeah.
It's insane, but it's the way the world is at the moment. And I think there has been a shift in the last 3 months. Joe Rogan's podcast that was a huge part of it. Getting the two doctors on there, and it caused a shitstorm. And I feel sorry for the man because they're going after him relentlessly at the moment.
Yeah.
It's the people that actually are doing the right things and trying to, I guess, bring awareness, you just get condemned and labeled.
Yeah,
and that's how they get away with it.
I'm just trying to live my life the way I want to live it, and that's and really that's like, I guess that's not anymore, but that was sort of the liberal left wing way of viewing the world. Let people just live and let live.
Yeah,
just let people do what they want. And it's just everything's just flipped around now. So I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing though.
That's all you can do.
I've always had. Yeah, I mean, I've got a, to an extent, I've got a filter. You know what I mean? I don't put anyone down. I've never, bullied anyone. If I see something that I believe in, I'll share it.
Yeah, and that's how you should be. And it's a credit to you for doing that. As I said before we started recording, you do share some things from time to time, and but it takes courage in saying that. Not sharing it, but it's knowing what could come from that, because we've seen it happen with people. And the fact that you're an athlete who fights for the biggest MMA promotion in the world, and you're speaking your mind, it's a credit to you for doing that. And if more people did that, I feel like, because a lot of people don't agree with it, that's a thing, but they just don't talk about it. But that could be the thing that needs to happen.
Well, yeah, I was speaking to someone whose uncle's apparently a big time psychologist, and he was saying that just sharing what we've been sharing is what's going to make the biggest impact. Because even if someone doesn't agree with it, it's in the back of their mind now.
Yeah.
That's the best way. It's not that I'm sharing it to say you need to think the way I'm thinking. It's just sharing it, saying, have an open mind. I'll always say to people, no matter what it is, like, go back to flat earth, you know what I mean? People, if someone asks me, I'll say, take it how you want, but I don't know. I haven't been up there myself and had a look at it. I don't know. You know what I mean? Right. Even when it comes to all the stuff over the last 2 years, I've just got my opinion, what I think is the best for me, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not forcing anyone else to do that. I've got an open mind about it. If the day comes, and this is something that's very dangerous too, that I've noticed, is more now than ever, people can't be humble and eat their words and admit they're wrong. They will die on their sword, even they know that they're wrong. And there's a lot of people now, they know that they're wrong, but they not admit that they're wrong, and they will die on their sword.
Yeah, or they just move on like it never happened.
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit. I'll be like, hey, I'm wrong. I should have, I was wrong. I'll admit it, and I'll learn and grow from there. It's what you're supposed to do. I think maybe being in martial arts, I think martial artists have that view, because you get humbled very quick if you're wrong in martial arts, and you have to adapt and change with the times. And if you don't, you get left behind. So I think there's a lot of martial artists. I think, like you said, a lot of them are on the same wavelength as I am. But they're probably too smart to be vocal on social media.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? It's, again, you have to think, always try to think what would happen, in 2 years from now. And always think that inevitably things will have to change. It can't keep heading down this course. And if it does, well, then the majority of people are going to start going, they're going to start going, listen, I don't want that. What's going on? They're going to start pushing back. And I feel like that will be the time where people will start switching off the mainstream media, because make no mistakes about it. That's the biggest problem, is the mainstream media, for sure. The biggest problem that we've got. And I feel like it's when that mindset shifts, it'll be very interesting. But I've no doubt that when it does shift, it'll happen very quickly. And it's going to hopefully slow things down a little bit and hopefully put things in reverse, because the path we're heading down at the moment, man, is not good for anybody. It really isn't.
No. Well, I mean, I've been, I don't like using the term, but I guess I've been woke to the mainstream media for. This is not something that I've just come across in the last couple of years with everything that's going on. This is something that, how old was I? I was 19. So I was 19. Just to open up my gym, I was in the UFC. We're trying to get the octagon legal in Melbourne. It wasn't legal.
Yes. Yep.
So the first time I ever fought in the octagon was in the UFC. Every fight before that, I fought in a boxing ring. Yep. So this journalist from The Age, I think, he contacts me. He's like, I want to do a good story on the UFC coming out and how good it's going to be for, yada, yada, yada. Yep. So I said, yeah, come to my gym. He comes to my gym. He's my best mate for the day. I take him to a restaurant, shout him lunch, back to the gym. We're taking photos. 6 hours worth of interviewing and photos and talking. Yeah. And then this biggest dog shit article comes out. None of the photos that were used, that we took that day, just misquoted everything I said. And it was completely against having the UFC and the octagon legal in Melbourne. And it made me look like an idiot for starters. And yeah, it was just talking about how brutal a sport is. It's human cockfighting, everything to degrading women for being ring girls. And my face was my face, a face of me looking angry and me covered in blood in an old fight. That was the big picture on the article as well. So that was my opening to that. And since that day, I mean, you burned me once. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm smart enough to put all media under the same banner.
Yeah.
It's like when it comes to politicians, this politician has done the wrong thing, but it's just him alone. It's not everyone. The politician, the political party that I support are good. Like, no, they're all the same.
Yeah, of course they are.
The same. They're all the same. They're all cut from the same cloth. So and that's almost 10 years ago now. So that's how long I've just been switched off that.
They're brutal. I'm telling you now, they're a unique group of people. Like, to be a journalist for one of those publications, like, you have to be you have to, and you got to be a bit fucked in. Like, you can't be a person with compassion, empathy, and then do a job like that. You can't,
unless it suits them.
But even then, man,
which is relevant right now.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
But we're seeing that on a huge scale now. But but it's funny, because prior to this pandemic, if you asked anybody what two groups of people, the most untrustworthy on the planet, most people would say the media and politicians, right? And now, but now it's like what they say is gospel. They go along with everything. It's like, you forget. Like, look at history. Like, do you forget? Like, your short-term memory, you can't remember what's happened. Like, it's just, people seem to really switch off from that. Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it's a form of control, I guess, where they always brainwash people, where they can just manipulate them as easy. We've seen that.
Yeah. These governments, there's absolutely no way they're going to leave anything to chance.
No.
That's it. I mean, running a country is a business. It makes money. Yeah. You've got this World Economic Forum, whose mission statement is to, get the cooperation of public-private corporations, and they sit around a big table and they figure out the best way to make money.
That's right.
And by any means. And I was saying to someone, I said, man, watch. This is the conspiracy Jake coming out, but watch 007 Spectre. I mean, you got these.
Seen it.
Watch it. Watch the near the start there. There's these big people from all different countries sitting around a big table, and they're discussing, you know, what stocks that they want to drop, how to make money off that, you know, what building do they have to blow up to drop that stock. It's just, it's like they're showing you right there in your face. And that's exactly how I view the World Economic Forum.
That's what it is. And they say that openly. Like, they say that on their website, that
Justin Trudeau is a World Economic prodigy.
That's right.
And he was put in to penetrate the cabinet. It's Klaus Schwab says this. He says this. Yeah. But if I repeat it, I'm a conspiracy theorist. But he has said this on video, and you can search it up and see it yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where people need to snap out of that mindset of that anything that seems like it's anti-government is conspiracy. No, it's not. Like, people actually think the government care about them. That's the real conspiracy. The fact that these people believe the government gives a fuck about them and would never do that to them. No, they have, and they will do it, and they'll continue to do it. But, you know, I watched a video last night on YouTube. It was King's Politics is the name of the show. And he spoke to a professor from I think university. And it really opened my eyes up as to what's happening in the Ukraine. So, because I didn't really know much about it. And I don't like talking about shit unless I know what I'm talking about. Let's be honest. Otherwise you look a dickhead. So I was like, well, I want to get up to speed. And I'd heard the media's version of what was happening. And I thought, this person seems to be contradicting that. And if the last 2 years has taught me anything, is to listen to all sides. So I listened to this professor, and he was a 70-year-old bloke. He's very knowledgeable. Mate, he's got accolades left, right, and center, very well respected. And he was speaking about it. And the stories, so basically what he was saying was that in 2008, NATO made an announcement they wanted Ukraine to become a member. And Russia said, no fucking way, you're not going to do that. We won't let that happen. Anyway, it went quiet. Then in 2014, the US and the UK started sending weapons to the Ukraine and started teaching them their military how to fight. And then Turkey started sending drones. This is in the last few years. Turkey started sending drones over to the Ukraine for them to use. And Russia made it very clear that they don't want the Ukraine a part of NATO for obvious reasons, right? And they pushed it. They were persistent with it. And then even last year, they were sending bombers circling Russia, going right up to, they had ships going up to the Russian coast and then backing away. The UK and the US were doing that. So Russia's extremely paranoid and concerned. Yeah. And when he was saying all this, he was saying, listen, yes, it's tragic what's happening and it should be happening, but you can't really just blame Russia solely. Like, it's not just them. Like, they've been provoked. And he said, listen, he said, think about this. If North Korea and China had an alliance and they wanted to, for example, Mexico, right, which is obviously right on the border of the US, border country. If they wanted Mexico to become a member of their alliance, what do you think the US would do? Do you think the US would accept that? Of course not. They're not going to have their enemy at their doorstep. And that's what he was saying. He was like, there's a lot more to this, but that's pretty much in summary, what's happening.
Yeah. To me, I don't know. There was no build up. It just came out of nowhere. And I'm the same as you, man. I have no idea what's going on or the motivations behind it. All I know is that these things don't just happen.
No, of course not.
You know, there is a plot that certain people want to happen, and this is part of it, and that's it. And at the end of the day, civilians are the ones who are getting killed. Innocent people are the ones who are suffering. Right. And even with this call, man, like these countries that have all these capabilities and these weapon systems and soldiers, but you're putting out a call for volunteers, potentially civilians with no form of military training, to go over and fight. It's and why? Because Ukraine didn't want to sign up to NATO. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, they did. That was the problem. So they did want to sign up, and that's where Russia said, "Well, no, we're not going to have."
Yeah. Well, I mean, but because of that, you know, all these countries aren't going to send their own troops. They're going to let civilians go. They've opened up the gates for civilians to go and get thrown a rifle and go and, you know, probably die over there.
Oh, definitely. You would think that, they're arming just everyday residents of the Ukraine, just going, here's a assault rifle, go and protect. It's like, well, fuck, this guy's just going to get killed.
I think that's wrong.
It is very wrong, and that's the problem with war.
If fucking Scott Morrison jumped on the back of a horse with a rifle, and I'd follow him straight away. But I don't agree. I don't agree with that. Because at the end of the day, no matter what conflict it is, it's the innocent civilians are the ones who are gonna suffer.
Yeah, and ultimately, we have nothing to do with any of it. Like, that's been consistent throughout history. The wars, the people who suffer, the innocent civilians and the children. Like, that's one thing I've been saying, that when you hear the children are dying in war, you think, fuck, what for? Like, really? Like, I know they probably don't intentionally kill the children. It's probably just collateral as to what they're trying to achieve, because you have to be a special kind of fucked up to want to hurt children. But I mean, it's just so unnecessary, man. Like, look how advanced we are as a species. Like, we can fucking send ships to the moon. Like, we can do. Elon Musk's about to move to Mars, right? And yet we still have the need for these wars, which, like, man, can't you sort it out another way? Like, surely, like a phone call, something. Yeah. But it just seems so unnecessary.
The politicians aren't the ones who are gloving up and duking it out.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't like you, so I'm going to send all these innocent people to go and fight on my behalf. It's I'm in the Army Reserves.
Yep.
But I didn't join the Defence Force. I joined the Defence Force to defend Australian citizens. If the time comes and the need be, I didn't join to defend a government or fight for a government. I think the majority of people in Defence Force will agree. I joined up that if the day comes where Australian lives are in danger, then I can help out in whatever way I'm going to help out. But yeah,
Well, I think a lot of us would. I think a lot of us would, man. Let's be honest. If
100%.
they rocked at our doorstep and more, I'm pretty sure most men, well, fuck, who knows now, but I'd like to think
that 30 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, well,
I think if there was a mandatory conscription, I think.
Fuck, can you imagine?
I think you'd have millions of people going to prison.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I seen a funny meme the other day. Someone shared it, and on Twitter, so I mean, Twitter's got some of this shit on there. It was Russian tank, and it was like just like a normal Russian tank, right? Then it had the US tank, and it was like pink, and it had they them on the side of the tank.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, man, it shows you priorities. But like when this shit happens and like calamities arrive, like at the moment, like, are you really prepared for that? Or have you been focusing on other shit that, probably isn't of utmost importance? And that's what you're probably going to see now, is that I'd be interested to see if they do that, if they do a draft, what it would be like, what the numbers would be like. Because I definitely imagine that men today aren't like they were 30 years ago.
I don't. Yeah, no, 100%. Well, I don't think it will get to that. I hope it doesn't get to that.
That's the last thing anyone needs, man. That'd be fucking tragic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the mindset it's good to be prepared, but like for anyone, I think anyone who's like a warmonger and they're trying to, and they're hoping something kicks off and they get excited by it, they've probably never been to a war zone in their life. They've never served in the military or anything like that. A lot of majority of veterans will tell you, they'll say, you shouldn't be having your fingers crossed for a conflict to kick off.
No,
with duty, you can't just hit the restart button and then respawn.
Yeah, that's right.
And not just that, the collateral is probably the worst part about it. There's newborn babies in bunkers in Ukraine on oxygen because they're not safe in the hospitals. That's probably the hardest thing to watch.
Oh, it's terrible, and war's not good for anybody. But you know what? Unfortunately, for some reason, there's these people out there that call for it, who get excited over the potential of a war. And it's like, you're only saying that because you don't know what it's like. If you knew what it was like, you wouldn't be saying shit. Oh, I don't know what it's like. I've never lived through a war, but you can imagine. Like, that's not fun for anybody.
Not. You can't compare the two, but it'd be like someone saying they could jump in and probably give Kamaru Usman a good crack in the octagon. These guys probably never stepped foot in a gym and never done a single round in their life. Again, like, you can't really compare but it is similar.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't been in there, haven't been punched in the face, they haven't seen the injuries or the damage you can get. They haven't seen, like I've probably got, injuries that are going to pop up in 20 years' time from just the last 15 years of just getting, beaten down every single day. Yeah, so there's no perspective there for them to understand what it's really like, apart from video games, which which these video games, again going back to like from YouTube, these video games, it's taken away people's like morals, and it's desensitized people to death.
Yeah, it has.
I mean, me especially, like I've had instances where, like, I was driving, someone's had a seizure and hit their head. They got blood coming out of their head, and this chick stopped breathing altogether, gone blue. And luckily, I've done first aid training from my gym and other things, so I know what to do. So I was helping her out, but I didn't have any. There's no panic there. It's like I've seen it all in movies before. You know what I mean? Or you hear stories of people. People get hit by a car and they're dead on the ground. And people just walk up and film it on Instagram. It's, there shouldn't be a first reaction. The first reaction should be shock. But I had a mate who got launched off a bike, hit by a car. The car stopped, and the car tires up on his back. And the first thing someone does is run over and starts filming him an Instagram story.
Oh.
Their first instinct isn't to help or to feel any sort of sympathy. It's like it's a simulation, because I've seen it in the movies so many times.
Yeah, it's that, and also the fact that, as you said, we're so, like, it's just completely altered our sense of reality. Well, that should be shocking to the average person. Take away media, video games, movies, the rest of it. That'd be shocking to anybody. But it's just like another day, because it said they've seen it before, and we're like robots in a sense, where we've lost a lot of emotion. What made us, what makes us human. We're losing that, and that's a great example of that. Where the
only emotion that's remained and has actually been amplified is anger towards other people, and and you obviously see that people have just lost all compassion.
Yeah, they have,
and go through the motions of just being an asshole, pretty much.
Yeah, because they're allowed to, and because they get away with it. And that's the problem again with social media, is that people can be whatever or whoever they want to be, and there's no, they can do or say whatever they want, and there's no consequences for that. I've had people threaten my family.
Yeah,
on Instagram, like, people get so angry they threaten my family. It's like what the fuck is wrong with you? You must be mentally ill. Like, what makes you, like, if you don't like me, fine, it doesn't, I don't care, but why would you threaten someone's family? What the fuck? The people, they're just,
if you wanted to take it further, they probably have immunity because they follow the narrative, and they're going to slap on the wrist.
That's right. And let's be honest, none of those people are ever going to do shit.
Yeah, if it was someone who was, of our mindset, who said that to someone else, then the consequences would be different. Very different. And that is social credit score, pretty much.
Definitely, you get labelled an extremist.
Yeah, your consequences are based on your political views or whatever it is. The consequences are different for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is having a social credit score put to your name. It's not yet like a physical thing where you actually literally have a score against your name, but it's on its way there.
Mate, it is on the way there, and that's coming. That's something I spoke to Senator Malcolm Roberts about. Out of all the politicians I've spoken to, because there's been many of them that have reached out and I've said no, because I don't like what they're about. They've done some things in the past. I'm like, I don't even want to really speak to you. But there's some good ones there, and he's one of them. Honestly, he's one of them. And you can tell the difference between a politician that's motivated purely financially or for power, and another politician who really has Australians' interest at heart. There's a huge difference, and you can pick that up almost immediately when you speak to them.
Yeah.
And I don't align with any political party because, as a whole, I don't trust anyone. I don't trust any politician as a whole. But, there's some that I will speak to because I do believe, because they make sense. They put a lot of work in, and you can see what they're doing doesn't really benefit them in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
There's still some good ones out there, but they're getting harder and harder to come by, and that's I guess part of the reason why we're here. But Anyway, man, I'll before we jump off, man, what's your goals for the next, let's say, 3 years? What are you hoping to achieve in your career?
Oh man, just trying just trying to actually get into the octagon and get a fight. Man, yeah, we're even talking about shipping over to the States and just doing maybe 12 months stint there, just to avoid any restrictions and any limitations. But we'll see how we go. You know, with a little one now, but man, it's full on at the moment. We're trying to build a house. You know, trying to organise fights, and you know, new baby just arrived. So yeah, hopefully, I'd like to string together like at least 3 fights this year. Even if I do like a bit of a stint myself in the States and just do a few, you know, maybe a month or so apart. Yeah, just get active. You know, I've had a few stints where, you know, due to surgeries and my daughter being born, I had about 2 stints where I had 10 months off.
Yeah.
I don't really want to be doing that again. Like I said, I feel like it's a good time for me. You know, I'm late 20s, you know, probably physically quite mature now, and mentally as well. My training seems to be falling into place, so I just want to get in there, get active, and that's about it. And just get as many fights as I can. I don't have a goal of like reaching a certain rank, or I'll just give it 110%, and however far I can take it, that's how far I'll take it.
So you're staying in welterweight for the time being, anyway. That's your weight.
For the time being, yeah. I started blowing up, and I thought maybe you know, I probably could do middleweight, but and those guys are monsters, and I have no issue making them welterweight. So, you know, I mean, maybe towards the end of my career, I might jump up to middleweight and have a, you know, just get as swole as I can and just throw some big, heavy overhands.
See how you go. Man, it works for some people, man.
Yeah, and then I can say, you know, I'm probably one of the, you know, there's probably not many people that have fought across 3 divisions in the UFC. So another something else on the resume. But yeah, we'll see. At the time being, man, I almost walk around. I could make weight for a fight within a week. So I'll be staying at welterweight for a little while.
That's good, but it serves you well. I mean, it's look at, you said before, Whittaker. Whittaker's a great example of that. The guy's been, besides Izzy, let's be honest, besides Izzy, he's by far that's the problem with that division, isn't it? You've got Izzy, Rob, who are clearly above the rest. And it's sort of a stalemate at the moment where, you know, what are they going to do? But Rob, besides Izzy, Rob's been unstoppable at middleweight, and he struggled a little bit at welterweight. But since he's moved to middleweight, man, he's been on a tear. And
if you saw the state of Rob at the weigh-ins when he was a welterweight, you'd probably be surprised that he did so well actually at welterweight.
Yeah, obviously he was struggling.
I was in a bad way after my weight cuts, but he was next level again. So for his last couple of fights at welterweight, you could probably excuse him. And then when he went to middleweight, man, he's just unstoppable. So that's what I'm trying to achieve. So hopefully we get there.
Man, you get there.
I just need to get into the octagon without any limitations, and I'll be good to go.
What's the UFC's plans? Because they haven't done a show down here in ages.
There's been no word, but I couldn't imagine they'd be coming down here anytime soon.
No, I think so.
Things sort of change at the drop of a hat. So I'm sure as soon as an opening arises, the UFC will book something in. But it's just a matter of when that's going to happen, and it's just a roller coaster at the moment. So it's very, you know, and the logistics behind getting a UFC event here, you know, the equipment and the staff and the fighters and their corners, you know, and then you've got like, you know, the you know, all these passports and stuff that you got to get sorted now. It's just it'd just be a nightmare. So I think that's why they're just sticking in the US at the moment.
Makes sense for them, but they've done a great job of keeping the shit going, man. They were probably the best in the world at that. Keeping things going throughout the pandemic. That's a credit to Dane. Man, that guy is an animal. Really, as a businessman, he's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. I don't mind fighting in the States because I don't pay any tax in Australia.
No,
I don't mind doing that.
That's right. There you have the treaty there.
At the moment, I don't. You know, I'm happy to not give them a cent. So
absolutely, half your luck.
Yeah.
But anyway, brother, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure, man, and I hope to talk to you again soon. And hopefully, you get that fight booked. When did you say you're looking at? March, was it, or May?
Late May. So May 21st, around that date. So
obviously that'll be in the States, obviously, I would imagine.
It'll be in the States. And I've put down a few big names. So hopefully one of those come back. And yeah, we'll get a good fight. the bigger the
Beautiful.
name, the more motivation I have to train. So
Absolutely. And as I said, man, it was watching your Diego performance. Mate, I seen a lot of maturity there. And as you said, probably a little bit too safe, but I think you can be excused for that. You're fighting a legend of the sport and you have a lot of respect for him. And that could be excused. But man, I was very impressed with that performance of yours, man. But listen, it's been a pleasure, man. You're welcome back anytime. We'll have a chat for sure. And hopefully next time you're on that roll.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
I got a good
absolutely.
couple of, I'm looking to get a few knockouts on my record now. So we'll see how
I'd
it goes.
love to see it. All right, brother, listen, it's a pleasure.
Check back in a few months and we'll see how we're going.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Cheers, bro. I appreciate it.
See you, bro.